Works?
Yep. Let's do it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bill Matowski, and we come together tonight to openly discuss the following subject: promoting and leading a work-life balance environment. To begin, allow me to introduce to you our panel. We have Veronica Murray, business manager at Mississippi State University; Eric Rennie, R&D scientist with Xylo Therapeutics; Corey Schaefer, analytic consultant with Wells Fargo; and Julian Smith, coordinator of IT with Hoover City Schools; and myself, William Matowski, vice president of compliance. What exactly is remote work? Work from home has become necessary for many employees due to the COVID-19 coronavirus. As we all know, companies built on the expectations of sharing a physical space each day will find it difficult to adapt to a work from home environment. Remote work allows professionals to work outside of traditional office setting. It is based on the idea that work can be done successfully anywhere. As a result, the idea of working remote may present a fresh opportunity for many people. Instead of commuting to an office every day, remote employees can work from wherever they want. People can plan their days that their professional and personal lives coexist peacefully. Remote work has benefited from the cultural shift in what society considers an appropriate workplace. As a result, examples of management that can be discussed include the ones listed below. Oh, I shouldn't have said that, but anyway. Encourage setting boundaries between work and family. Encourage physical activity, health outside the workplace. Encourage telecommuting within the workplace. Advantages and disadvantages. Encourage managers, leaders to lead by example, and employer benefits of a positive work-life balance. Let us start with Julian Smith, move on to Corey Smith, myself, Veronica, and finishing up with Eric.
All right. As we said, first topic we're going to talk about is establishing boundaries. It's important to establish boundaries to make sure that you have a balance between your work life and your personal life. There basically are two different categories of employees. You have segmenters who prefer to have established boundaries, strong boundaries, and they would like for their work to be aligned with a traditional workday, so a 9 to 5 or 8 to 4, whatever typically structured day. Then you have the category of integrators, and those are people who prefer more of a blended experience. A lot of times their work is called boundaryless work because they may start working for a couple of hours and stop and do a couple of personal tasks, and then they would jump back in more work. It's kind of up to the leadership of an organization to establish the culture for the type of boundary management and the expectations, that are in place for employees that are working within that environment. So, exempt employees have a certain expectation that, your salary, some weeks you may not meet your target of 40 hours, and other weeks you may exceed it. And so again, it's all set from the culture of the leadership. It's important to remember that just because someone is comfortable as a segmenter at one phase of life, as seasons change, they may have higher family obligations that require them that need to be more flexible. They may shift over and become more integrated. So it's important to keep their finger on the pulse of, their needs and making sure that they're working within those boundaries. So some things that you can do when you are trying to establish boundaries, understand and accept that no is a complete sentence. Oftentimes people will feel the need to explain their way out of, not taking on things when they're trying to establish boundaries. But, that's one of the key things is understanding that no is a complete sentence. Stop wearing overwork as a badge of honor as well. You need to establish completing work tasks during work hours. And if you're working in a fluid integrated model, you can still work outside of the typical work day, but you want to have a protection around yourself for your mental health, and make sure you're able to pour 100% into your work when you are doing that, and establish clear line of communications between you and the administrator, and make sure those expectations are aligned.
Awesome. I think I'm up. So next thing we wanted to talk about is encouraging physical activity outside of the workplace. So this is a pretty important component of having that work-life balance. You could move to the next slide. Awesome. So we all know that, exercise is good for us, right? But what I think we sometimes may not realize is that exercising can actually make us perform better at our jobs and be a benefit to our employers. So promoting physical activity outside the workplace, in my mind, is a really huge component of having a good work-life balance. I think that when employers encourage and offer incentives to employees to be more active, it really helps with getting employees off their computers and spending, more time away from work. I also think that, exercise is just kind of a great way to unplug from your day. I know whenever I, make the time to work out, and I've had a really stressful day, the minute I step in the gym and just start working out, I instantly kind of forget about everything that's happened during the day and just kind of focus on the activity that I'm trying to do. If you can move to the next slide. So what are actually we know that, physical activity can benefit us, but what are the benefits to employers for encouraging physical activity? The first one on here is stress relief, right? This is a no-brainer. Exercise is a great way, like I said earlier, to unplug from your work, release endorphins, and it helps people relax from a long day, allowing them to kind of think clearer and be more refreshed when they go back to work. The last two benefits of promoting physical activity for employers are higher energy levels and better productivity. And in my mind, these two kind of go hand in hand, right? Exercising has the ability to increase your energy levels, therefore making you more engaged at work and more likely to stay focused and get more done at work. And there was actually a Harvard study that that showed that exercise boosts several mental capabilities, such as enhanced creativity, quicker learning, and sharper memory. Awesome. So how can employers encourage physical activity? So we know, the benefits to employers when they promote physical activity to their employees, but how can employers actually do this? And two of the key things that come to mind, the first one is offering time away from work to exercise. So there was a Forbes article where a company called Total Wellness actually gives employees 30 minutes on the clock to exercise. So I think that's a great way for employers to really encourage physical activity. And the second one is providing stipends for gym membership. I've heard of a few companies where they offer, a certain amount of money per year to their employees for gym memberships, which is obviously, when you have that money to spend on a gym membership, why not? So I think those are two great ways that employers can kind of promote and encourage physical activity in their employees. And one of the questions that I was kind of curious about for the panel is, do your employers offer and encourage any benefits to physical activity? I know at Wells Fargo, they promote kind of wellness and physical activity through the health insurance. I think if you wear like a heart rate monitor and you do, you know, a certain amount of steps, you get a certain amount of money for your HSA. So I was curious if any other employers on the panel do the same, something similar.
My employer does not do anything to actively push that, but back to your point about, you know, exercise, releasing endorphins and making you feel better, 100% agree with that. I know I personally am a cyclist, so after a long day, if I can jump on my bike and get some miles in, definitely releases the stress of the day. And it's actually, you know, a lot of people think if you are having a struggle at work, you should remain highly focused on trying to overcome that. Sometimes some of my best ideas come to me while I'm riding my bike and being carefree because those creative juices are flowing and I'm not focused in on that. So yeah, exercise absolutely pays dividends. More employers should encourage that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my employer does not offer anything like discounts or anything to gyms and so forth. We're located in North Jersey, so we're still under the remote process with COVID. So me being remote, I make it a point to exercise at least 45 minutes to an hour a day to keep myself loose, to take a step away, to walk away from what I'm dealing on a regular basis, just to get out of the house and be in the sunshine. So yes, I take it upon myself to do that.
Sure. Awesome. Very good.
Yeah, so we actually have a home gym machine and an exercise bike at work that we can just go use whenever, and also a ping pong table. So it's not super encouraged, but it's definitely there if you want to.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mississippi State University doesn't offer any incentives, and they do have memberships available to their Sanderson Center. And then they do have some free workout equipment in the yard, and there's a pond there around the center that's free for all of the students and faculty too. If anyone wants to use it, they can. But University of Alabama did offer incentives when I worked there, and it was nice to go to those health screenings and go to those seminars. And, you know, our whole group did walking together, and then every department kind of had a challenge with each other, and then the winner got financial incentive in their paycheck. So it definitely does work. It is a great motivator to have that. And I really, you know, like what you said about the one company offering 30 minutes of your workday to go and do that. That was really great. I think that more places should definitely do that.
Yeah, totally agree. Awesome. Great to hear.
Well,
I think.
Okay, I'm
Rob
next.
Or Bill, am I passing it
Yep.
over to you?
Thank you. So I'll be discussing advantages and disadvantages for employers / employees to promote telecommuting in the workplace. As we all know, COVID-19 has really changed the landscape in regards to how we are working, how we're social distancing, how we have flex place policies that are becoming increasingly popular regardless of the type of work that it allows. I just want to point out some of the disadvantages and advantages on the next slide in regards to everyday business. Starting with lower day-to-day cost. Obviously, in my personal experiences with my employer, a total recalibration was done in regards, do we need to be in the office to perform our work? Now, I work in the mortgage industry in regards to everyday job responsibilities. And does it really matter to have an office space to house 200 so many employees on a day-to-day basis? Can we cut costs in office space, leasing space? Do we need all the satellite offices since we're all performing very well, let's just say in a remote atmosphere? I'm assuming any business strategy should prioritize keeping costs to a minimum, regardless of the company size. And working remotely can help businesses save money on overhead, like I was trying to describe, while also potentially improving the bottom line. Overall, it cost us little to be in the office and to be out of the office. Obviously, there's a bigger cost savings there and a lot of different cost savings that don't get accounted for, such as like office supplies, furniture, equipment, even down to the coffee and commercial cleaning can be avoided or reduced. The other advantage for employers nowadays is recruiting, especially with when you put a job posting up, say we're in North Jersey, we're only looking for people in that area of where we're located. Now, since we're working remotely, now it puts a positive spin that we can, expand our geographic footprint in regards to finding the help that we need. So we're not limited in North Jersey. Now we can look into Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, California to find that special someone to fit the needs. So we're not just putting ourselves in one spot, which greatly expands the talent pool within our industry or anybody else's industries that you're looking for. And another advantage would be increase or extended operational hours. I know some of us are going to be talking about that one as well, but obviously, like was said before, productivity goes up when you're exercising or when you're focused on your work at home. It's a great benefit to the employer and to the employee being in those type of situations. Now, with any advantage, there's always disadvantages. And the one disadvantage that I see from my personal experience is that some people need to be in an office space. They need to see people on a regular basis. They need to be in an atmosphere, a team atmosphere, where they're interacting with people on a daily basis. Now, some people don't need to do that. I'm pretty self-contained. I don't need to see people on a regular basis. But there are some people that might feel like they're isolated or feel unappreciated, that are sitting on an island by themselves, and their work could suffer, their productivity could suffer, and evaluations for them could be more harmful than they would be in an office setting where they can ask the questions to their managers. They can just go down to their office or their cube and discuss the situation from there, which ultimately could lead to lack of motivation for that individual. And again, like I said before, it's going to present itself with, peer to peer. A lot of people like to go through the promotion features of where they work. They might not get that peer to peer when they're working remote, and they won't get that FaceTime or time on their own. The biggest thing we've dealt with before is corporate compliance, communication in regards to leadership or managers expressing what's the next steps being remote. What's the next steps? Are we going to be doing this for the next couple months? Is it going to be for the next year or so? So there's got to be constant communication to the employees from the employer and vice versa to make sure everybody's on the same page. And I guess any sort of question would be and now we have a big array of different industries here. Have you noticed, has corporate communication been very good with your companies that you're working with? I'll start with my own situation. It was good in the beginning, but it's really wavered in the last 6 months. We used to have town halls in the beginning of the year and the end of last year and during the pandemic, but it's really wavered off in the last 6 months. So a town hall would be, status of the business, how we're doing, how's everybody doing, a more peer-to-peer, just to see each other on a daily basis. And then corporate communication from, like I was saying earlier, what's the next step? And I know from my point of view, that really has gone downhill. I don't know how it is with Wells Fargo or from the school districts or the pharmaceutical, but does anybody have any points on that?
Well, at Mississippi State University, the email and the communication has skyrocketed and continues to stay that way. And it's funny that you mentioned town halls because my husband's department, he works there as well. They
Okay.
still hold their monthly town hall meeting. And for the people who are there we went back to work in May, the entire university, and they're still holding it, and they're now holding it in person. And if someone has to be out due to quarantine still or whatever, they are just virtually bringing them in as well. So it's nice to see that it's still going on,
Yeah, it
for
is.
at least some of the departments.
Right.
Yeah, I can't say I've noticed a big difference in like the way that like our team or our company communicates, because I feel like, specifically on my team, we're kind of like all across the country. So
Right.
we typically we're meeting virtual anyways. So we would have like a handful that were located in Charlotte, but the rest of the team might be in South Dakota. So I was used to, jumping on phone calls instead of having like those face-to-face meetings, and still at the corporate level, I would say, we've got our quarterly cadences and whatnot. So I don't know that I've seen a shift in like having those routine calls and routine like meetings and town halls and things like that, because they were virtual to begin with, just because with the size of our team and our company, I think.
From my perspective, communication, I guess the overall tone changed a lot. When COVID first occurred, the whole district shut down, everyone went home, and that was a challenge. Just trying to make everything, how do you educate students? We're talking about students as young as, we're pre-K through 12, so you've got some kids 3 years old all the way through 18, 19-year-old students. And so, everyone was being cautious, and the tone originally was, take care of yourself. Well, the first we ended one school year, and then we basically had a whole school year that was in this hybrid situation with COVID. And I think the learning gaps that were created kind of changed the tone for this year, which has basically been, we're going to do everything we can to keep the doors open. We're going to encourage as many kids to come in person. And I understand, there was a lot of kids we saw struggle, whether it was they didn't have resources or parents are also working from home, and, you can't focus on your job and help your student learn. So the overall tone at my district, at least, definitely went more towards, we've got to do everything we can to keep people in the buildings as much as possible this year.
Yeah, so being a scientist, there's not really a lot of remote work that you can do. So this hasn't really been something that could benefit me or harm me, because the job just doesn't really work remote.
Okay. All right, Veronica, your turn.
All right. Well, so one of the things that I want to talk about is the employee's ability to use flex policies that are in place for their company, and why they may be scared to use them. It seems that there's kind of a culture of employees still afraid to use their flex benefits. And so Harvard Business Review published a study that was done by an associate dean and the director of the MBA program at a business school in Italy. And they questioned over 400 people, men and women, average age 43, to rate their supervisor and their organization on the supportiveness of using some flex policies for personal or family reasons. And what they found was that 63% rated their supervisors unsupportive of them using the policies and using the flex, and 81% rated their organizations of unsupportiveness of their personal life altogether. And so these are really high stats of unsupportiveness for work-life balance. So I want to know, I wanted to know why do employees fear using flex? And the reasons that I have found are that they might be perceived not committed to their work, or they might fear repercussions from their supervisors and, not get those good projects. And they might just catch flack for choosing their family or their personal life over work. And they might catch that from not just their supervisor, but also their. And so that's really scary to think, that we have families and personal matters, and more than half of us are afraid to use it because of how our supervisor might respond to it, or 75% of us are afraid because our company doesn't support that. And I think that we need to move towards, supporting that and creating a better culture of that. The supervisor's role in creating a work-life balance is really important because their attitude towards it, if they have a negative attitude towards the policy or towards the employee using it, then that's going to discourage it and make the employee feel like they might have to suffer a consequence for using it. And that's not going to be good. So what do we do? How do we move forward so that we can have better work-life balance? And so the study found two things that we should focus on. One is training supervisors to be more supportive, show them the benefits, some of which we've talked about here in this panel already, and then create a positive work-life balance in the company culture so that both the supervisor and the company are together on board offering this to the employees and allowing them to take it without those repercussions or without that flag. So it really does, the title of my article really does ring true. It's better work-life balance starts with the managers, and it really, really does. So if we can get these supervisors trained, then we can create a more positive work-life balance company culture. And so then my question to the panel is, what kind of things can we do in our own workplace to help grow that culture? And so in my workplace, if I have a colleague that needs to run out and run an errand in the middle of the day because she has to pick something up for a kid, or maybe go see her child's play, or maybe she has something personal going on and she wants to take care of it, a few hours, I want to support that and maybe ask her if there's anything that I can do, while she's out to help make sure that her impacted by that as well. And then if we could do that for each other in the workplace, then I think it might help, even virtually. I think that we could do that for people, because whether you're virtually or in the office, stuff happens all day long, and, we might need some support. So I think if we start supporting each other a little more, that might help.
Yeah, I do that with my team. I have 6 direct reports, and obviously um, life gets in the way sometimes in regards to like doctor's appointments, like you just said, picking up kids or dealing with other things. But I try to be as supportive as possible. Not everybody's like that, unfortunately, but I do have that understanding in regards to, all right, you have a doctor's appointment that you need to take to, or I need an extended lunch because I need to pick up prescriptions or something like that. I'm very flexible with that way. As long as the work gets done and you create that relationship, I think that's a positive. That people, my team is not afraid to ask me, let's just say that. So we work together that way, which is good. I don't see
That's
that a lot
great.
with other
Yeah.
people, but that's what I try to do, because I think once I establish that relationship, I don't it's like, don't take my kindness for weakness kind of thing. But I get more out of people when I help out that way. Let's just say that.
I think for me, it's really just about not equating number of hours worked with productivity. So somebody could be more productive in 20 hours than somebody that works 50, and it's just not, it's not an equivalent thing. And I think creating a culture where that's realized is important.
Yeah, I know one thing my manager does very well is he definitely tries to kind of promote, when you're on PTO, when you take your PTO, don't be checking your emails, don't be
Good point.
responding to emails, like take your time away and don't worry about work. And I think that's super important to me because there's always people that I see, you know, on PTO sending emails on all day. And granted, you know, sometimes that unfortunately has to happen. But, you know, I think for the most part, taking your PTO and really, you know, getting away from work is something that I think managers and supervisors should encourage.
Yeah.
I fully agree with you there, and I think that it helps the employee be more productive. You know, if you can get that time away, you know, or I think that it causes more loyalty to the company and to the supervisor and better productivity.
Yeah. And so everything about this topic ties right back to where I was speaking on boundaries. You know, it's the supervisor, the leadership of that company's job to set the tone for how an employee should feel when they need to take time away from work. And, you know, it's often called the work family conflict, but really some people are single, they don't have a family, but you're allowed to have other interests outside of work. You know, you may want to take off, go across country on a trip. That's fine. You don't owe your employer an explanation for the time that you have earned to, you know, have leisure and have hobbies and things you enjoy. I mean, we should be working to live, not living to work. And, you know, I think I try to model that with my team. You know, I'm like, you know, disable the notifications, being in IT. People think that we're accessible 24/7, 365. Guys, like honest to God, it's crazy. And most people don't realize, like in today's education space, we're not just there supporting the teachers and students. You know, when you look at a high school football stadium where they're now doing instant replay on the sideline, we now have wireless sending that back and forth. So they're calling us in the middle of football games. If they have a play on the weekend and something goes on, they're calling us. And so trying to set those expectations with the building leadership, the central office leadership, and just, hey guys, my team deserves to have free time too. They deserve to be able to disconnect, unplug, recharge, just like anyone else in the district. So, yeah, it's definitely on leadership to set that tone and, you know, protect their employees.
Well, yes, absolutely. Well, that's about all I had. I kind of went through my slides with everything. So I think Eric, you're up.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about why it's beneficial to have work-life balance, but I mean, at the end of the day, these kind of policies, they have a stigma of costing the company money. And so what I really want to talk about is why the employer should actually promote these policies. What benefits do these policies give to the company? Because we've talked a lot about why they're good for the employees. Well, the biggest things are that these kind of policies reduce staff turnover and the costs related with those things. Absenteeism and lateness decreases, productivity increases, employee retention increases, employee loyalty and commitment increases, and it increases the organizational image. So if we'll go to the next slide. So some benefits that some companies noticed when they implemented these kind of policies. SC Johnson saves $200,000 annually because they have less employees leave and they have to spend less money training new employees. Another example is Arup Laboratories decreased their turnover by half. So these kind of things, they don't just benefit the employee, they lead to less burnout, they lead to less stress, they lead to a better overall employee experience and makes them want to stay with the company, and they don't want to stay home because they don't feel like going to work because they're so burnt out. Pfizer Canada reported a 30% increase in productivity due to their telecommuting policies. So all of these things lead to a better employee performance, which in turn really saves the company money. So it all really comes down to, at least in my perspective, is burnout. So my company requires even the most junior employees to work at least 45 hours a week, and it only goes up from there. And that leads to a lot of burnout. And it doesn't necessarily, I don't necessarily need to work 45 hours in a week. But because there's that expectation, a lot of times I end up sitting there longer than I need to. And then I'll wake up the next morning and be like, geez, I have to go back to work. And so I think it's really about keeping that balance and making your employees happier. And there may be some costs, but there are also a lot of cost reductions associated with these kind of policies. So my question for the panel is, in your experiences, having a proper work-life balance made you want to stay in your job more, made you less burnt out, made you more productive?
I'll go first on that one. Absolutely, yes. I have worked for 2 or 3 different companies that did support it very well, and a couple that did not. And the couple that did not, I didn't stay with them very long at all because, one of the things we have to not live to work, but we have to work to live. I really liked that earlier. And so, yes, it definitely impacted my decision of whether I stayed. And those companies had to train somebody to take my place.
Yeah, and like, you said, Veronica, they have to train someone to take your place. That not only are they, having a financial cost, they're having, losing that intangible knowledge that you have, how things worked. And so it's hard to get someone up to speed. And I think a lot of times, jobs do treat us as we're easily replaceable. And that's not necessarily the case, So yeah, it's definitely important. And I have definitely stayed in the K-12 space just because of the ability to kind of lead a pretty decent work-life balance. There's been a lot more stressful the past couple of years with COVID and trying to navigate those waters, but I think everyone's in that same situation. But yeah, K-12 is very conducive. My kid has a play or something, I can take off and go do that. And so, yeah, that definitely plays a factor in employee satisfaction.
Yeah, same here. I've been with the company 6 years, and driving one way to my office was 50 miles. So I'm saving by working remotely. I'm saving lifestyle by not sitting in the car for 2 hours during rush hour in the morning and rush hour at night. So there is a lot of satisfaction with working from remote, just by not dealing with traffic. Let's just say that right out of the gate. But being remote, I don't think I'll ever go back to the office. So my team has been very productive. I talk to my team individually every day. So it's really brought us more together than it was when we were at the office.
Yeah, from my perspective, I definitely think that a company that promotes a solid work-life balance has kept me, like my current company, kind of the leader of our organization. She sent out kind of like a memo around what Julian had talked about earlier, is setting boundaries. It was if don't be sending emails on the weekends, delay your email responses to during the week. Don't be sending emails at like 10 p.m. Try to send during people's work hours, or at least say, if you do send it, later in the day or later in the night, just say, you don't have to, this isn't urgent, don't look at it. And so I think that when she sent out that memo, I was like, wow, like that's really great that, the leader of our organization is kind of promoting that kind of work-life balance. And it made me, definitely something that kind of keeps me with the company.
Great. So I think all we have left is to show our references. And does anybody have any other comments or anything like that?
Not really. I just think, it's definitely important to establish those boundaries. Like, I am super passionate about that. I've got a friend from college I was talking to today. She's an attorney in DC, and she's pretty stressed out right now. And, a lot of that is because she won't establish those boundaries. We talked about being vulnerable in class and our leadership, and I think she's a little apprehensive about, sharing that vulnerability that, this is a little bit of an overwhelming workload, but, it's our job to recognize we are human and we have limits, and we must, protect our peace, protect our mental health. And especially in this culture where people seem to be more aware and tolerable of, protecting your mental health, definitely recognize that and don't be afraid to stand up for it.
Yeah, and I think the more that we talk about this stuff with each other and in the workplace and bring it up, I think that will move us forward into the right direction so that we can have a better work-life balance, you know, and have more productive, loyal, happy employees.
Yep.
Great.
All right. I'm going to stop the recording now.